Okay, so it is 11:02, so let's go ahead and get started. So welcome everybody to the August 2025 monthly cataloging meeting for Missouri Evergreen. We'll try to get through this agenda pretty quickly so you can have some more of your morning left. But let's get started. So the first thing here, cataloging committee news, it's just a reminder that Kate Coleman will be cycling off as the cataloging committee chair. This will be her last month as she will be becoming the chair of Missouri Evergreen as a whole next month. So Sarah Llewellyn from Cass County will begin her tenure as the cataloging committee chair. I think I saw Sarah on here if you just want to wave so everybody kind of knows what you look like. But thank you to Kate. She has been the committee chair for at least as long as I've been here. So 3 going on 4 years. So thank you, Kate, for everything you've done for us. And she's not even here, I think, this morning to hear me saying nice things about her. So, but that is what's happening. So as always, you can still always, Kate will be on the committee, but she will just not be the chair of the committee. So as always, you could still email her, I'm sure, if you need something, or Cat Help or me or Sarah, whoever you need to get a hold of. So, okay. So moving right along, as far as the consortium cataloger update, normal things happening, still doing grading as people get their certification and recertification. I always put the numbers in here so you can kind of see how that's going. This fall and January, this will have been 2 years since I redid the certification and recertification. So that means I will be updating it again. So whether that is new screenshots, new examples, new videos, the format is always up for discussion. Not sure if we're going to do coursework and a quiz again, or if we'll just maybe do coursework, not sure. If you have any suggestions or I don't know, if you really hate something, let me know and I'll see if I can work things in or out of the certification process that you think maybe need to be covered. I'm always open to suggestions, so please let me know. But that will be happening come this fall, and then we'll launch in January. But for now, Odoo is the same, so keep going there for all your certification needs for now. Anybody have questions about that? No, okay. So moving on, I've gotten several questions this month about pin-worthy editions, and I'm guessing this is just because pin-worthy are more of an Ingram thing and people are switching over to Ingram is what I'm assuming. But just to note that pin-worthy editions are similar to what are turtlebacks, if you know what those are. They're basically hardcover, hardbound books, but they're put out by publishers and they're literally just like the other paperback version and shoved into a new outside hardcover. So if you have a pin-worthy book and you look at the ISBN that is on the outside of the book and you are not seeing that ISBN in the catalog, open the book, go to the TP Verso, so where all the publishing information is, and there is usually an ISBN of what that book was before they shoved it in the new cover and gave it a new ISBN. It's that old ISBN. So check that old ISBN. If that matches something in the catalog, just add that pin-worthy ISBN, the one from the outside, to that catalog record, because it is literally the same thing. They just put it in basically in new packaging. That's all they did. And it is literally the same thing as the book that's listed in the inside. It just looks slightly different. There's no need to generally bring in new records for the community unless it's not in there at all. The ISBN from either the back or the one inside. Generally, it is just adding an ISBN and OTO to a record that is already there, and then putting your whole record. So there are several other companies that do this. I always use Turtleback books, but there's several. So anybody have any questions or comments about that? Now, I am going to pull nobody is saying anything at the point. When we cataloging discussion question, we are actually going to discuss this. So get ready to talk. So moving on to the next thing. So graphic novels. I get this question every now and then, and I'm just going to point this out. I'm going to pull up my examples though. So a graphic novel that is an adaptation of something that was already a book. So in this case, let's see my example. I was to say, I think it's Lois Lowry. Oh, okay, so The Giver. We all know The Giver. It was written by Lois Lowry, right? I think that's how you say it. I love this book as a kid. This is the original book. So when you go here in the MARC record, whoop, come on, either one. There we go. You can see the 100 here. This is the regular book, The Giver, Lois Lowry. So she is Lowry Lois in the 100 field, right? Makes sense. Now, there is also a version of this that is a graphic novel. And we will open this one. And we know who this book is by, right? Because we're all familiar with it. But you will see in the 245 in the C here, it says adapted by P. Craig Russell, illustrated by blah, blah, blah. It doesn't even technically mention her, even though like I'm sure it did like somewhere else on the book. We all know by where it's by. And then it has this nice 500 note. In a graphic novel situation where it is an adaptation, the adapter who is adapting, like maybe they're doing both the words and the illustrations, maybe just the words, they are getting the 100. We know this is based off of Lois Lowry's book. We know that. But in this case, she is not getting the 100 field. The adapter does in a graphic novel situation. So it's more akin to think of maybe a book that was adapted into a movie and all those all get 700s. It's really the director that goes to the top because he's considered the main person on that, right? So just keep that in mind. I've caught a number of these, the catalog I've been going and fixing, but remember when you're bringing these in, if it is a graphic novel situation, that the author is generally, the regular author from the original book is generally not the 100. It is different enough where they consider the adapter to be the main entry, okay? So in this case, you see she has a lovely 500 note. She is also listed like generally down here. In this case, here she is, graphic novel adaptation in 700. And then of course it still has, you know, the 800, but the 100 here is the adapter. That is correct. Now that does not mean that you have to shelve that by the adapter's name. You know, you're shelving where you decide to put your books on your shelves at your library. That's up to you. So you could still decide to shelve it under Lois Lowry. Okay, that's fine. But the MARC record, it does have to be correct, and the 100 needs to be the adapter. You are all so very quiet this morning, and I don't like that's like complete silence. I'm going to assume you all know what I'm talking about as there's no questions, so we're just going to keep going on. Let's see here. Okay, so KPAC. So this has been coming up. Now, the KPAC results, people are, if they have started using the KPAC, using it at their library, they may see erroneous things coming up in searches. And the KPAC results for audience are based on the fixed field. So let's go here. These are your fixed fields, right, guys? So your A, U, D, N here. That is how the KPAC is knowing what records to pull, okay? So that needs to be correct. So with the KPAC, you generally, it's children's items. So we are expecting anything that is A, B, C, or J is going to be considered juvenile. A is, I consider those more like your board books. B is your picture books. C is like, you know, anything from like picture books on up to the line where you would meet young adult. Young adult should not be pulling in the JPEG. That is D unless you're looking for young adult somewhere else. That's where that's pulling from. So you need to be extra careful now when you are pulling in your children's records and looking at the audience. J kind of says it's from like 0 to like 14. So it's the huge age range there. it's not any more specific than that. So if you want these to be coming up how, you want them to be correct, you want to be making sure you're putting the most specific audience in there. So your A, your B, and your C generally before a J. Okay, does that make sense? Because it is not smart enough to be able to pull from your 650 Vs where it says maybe juvenile literature or juvenile fiction. It's not smart enough to do that. It is pulling directly and only from that audience. So it is more important now, than ever for that to be correct in our MARC records, which, we always stress it should be that before, but we want to make sure, okay? Now, obviously, if you have any questions about this, you know where to ask me, or if you're seeing something wrong coming up in the KPAC, let me know and we can try to figure it out. But if it's wrong, that's generally why. If you go in and let's say you're pulling at something that you know is a young adult book, you're like, oh, this is like this. Why is this here? You go into that MARC record, you're probably going to go in and see like a J or something erroneously listed in that audience field. So if you fix that and, put it to D where it should be, it will re-index and it will fall out of those results. Okay, so you may have to go in and fix some things. There's not really a great way to go in and fix them all in mass. It's just kind of by individual record, but that is how that is coming in for the KPAC. Okay. Do you have any questions on that? Man, you guys are so quiet. We're gonna get through this stuff on the agenda super fast. Okay,
I
so
put a question in the chat.
oh, sorry.
I was wondering, are you using C for chapter books for kids? Because like you're
Yes.
going to have an age range that
Yes.
is not quite middle school that'll be reading chapters, but they're above picture books.
C is for chapter books. Yes.
Okay, thanks.
I didn't know exactly what to call those. I don't have a child or work with you. And it was like, yes, those middle kids. Yes. So A, your like chew on baby books. B, your picture books, and then C is going to be chapter books. So I was thinking, like I don't know, the Boxcar Children, those kind of things. That I think that ages me. That tells you how old I am. That's my reference of chapter books as the Boxcar Children. But yes, those are, anything from, I don't know, from early elementary to like your juvenile kids, like in middle school. That's going to be C.
Okay, thanks.
Do we have any more questions about that? If you're seeing erroneous results and you fix the audience and it's still pulling incorrectly, who knows? We know how these things work, ones and zeros, but always feel free to send me an email. And I'm happy to look at it or send it up the line if something is really not correct. But generally, if you fix the audience in these records, they will re-index and fix themselves in your results for your KPAC. Okay. So now we're at the one called catalog discussion, and we are going to discuss. So I'm going to need people to tell me how this is working. So it's been brought to our attention that there isn't really a good we don't really have a policy or best practices, I guess, for how weeding should be done. And I'm not talking about like the intervals at which maybe your library does weeding. I'm talking more of the literal process of when you're going in the catalog and what you are doing. So some people are going in, and when they're weeding, they are putting something as discard weed in the catalog. Okay. Some libraries are going in and just deleting their item out of a MARC record completely. Neither of those is necessarily wrong. However, if you are marking things as discard weed, at some point you do need to be going back and making sure you are deleting those items. Otherwise, they just live in the catalog. So whether that is you mark something as discard weed, you leave it for a year. Once you count those things, how many you've discard weeded that year, then you delete your items in mass, fine. But we just want to talk about how everybody is doing this, because we may need to write a best practice about how this is happening so that we can get some of those discard weeds that are just living in the catalog and have been in there. And honestly, I think probably some were migrated over. Just get them to leave and stop cluttering things up, right? So how are you doing this at your library?
We just generally delete them as they're pulled off the shelf within a month or so.
Okay. So are you, like Ron, at your library, when you do this, are you keeping track of your discarded? Or you maybe like you're tallying them by hand, you're keeping like count of them somehow? Because I'm sure these things have to be counted, right?
I don't know that I have ever had to count what books I
Okay.
want.
Okay. All right. So no counting, deleting them out within a month. Sweet. How else are people doing this?
Ours
I know
is
that I've
very,
been,
oh, sorry.
go ahead.
I was just gonna say ours is very similar. We just do like the top of the cart at a time. We just pull them off the shelf, delete them within the week, and then we hand count for our statistical reports. But if we ever needed one, I'm sure we could go in and generate a report as well.
Okay, so we run reports regularly about what is marked as a discard weed, but our report only pulls things that is more than a year old because they like us to keep the statistic in the system. They want the books still to show up in the system for at least a year while they're running their stat reports at the end of the year.
And that's what I was assuming some people would need that number for something for somewhere, because I don't think it's on necessarily the report, but that doesn't mean your library and your system doesn't want to count it somehow. Okay.
That's what we do here. We also, am I on? I am on. Okay. Here at Barton County, we pull and we mark them as discard weed. And then at the end of the year, once we've gotten all our numbers, we delete everything that's marked as discard weed.
Okay. So it sounds like the people who are talking, they are remembering, they are sometimes using discard weed, they're sometimes just deleting, but they are in general remembering to delete them after they have been marked to discard weed, which is all we really need to know, because that's really important. So we may talk at some point about pulling a report of things from everyone that have been set to discard weed that haven't moved or anything in maybe like forever, and then seeing about deleting those items. We will talk about this probably next week in the cataloging committee meeting more, but just things that are, that have just been sitting there forever, let's say 5 years or more. They do clutter up the catalog eventually, and the more libraries we add and the more people want to read those, and the phrase in there.
I'm so sorry to interrupt, Liz. I can't hear you. I can't hear you at all. I don't know. I'm seeing other people in chat saying similar.
Okay, I took out my earbuds. Can you hear me now? Okay, who knows? Okay, the earbuds are, the cat was literally chewing on them at the beginning of the meeting, so I'm not going to rule that out that she has done something. So where did we stop hearing me? And I will go back. So I'm going to guess.
Maybe like a
Okay,
minute.
Just start
maybe.
over.
Yeah.
hearing from, mostly they are talking about how they are going in and either deleting them right away, or they are marking them as discard weed and coming back within a certain amount of time, whether that is a month or a year or whatever, but they are remembering to come back and delete those, which is awesome. That is what we want to hear. So we will talk about this probably in the cataloging committee meeting that we have next week, about how this is what we need to do and what are we going to do about those items that have just been sitting in there erroneously for maybe 5+ years, because there are some of those. And we know as we add more libraries, more junk like that comes over, gets in, and then we could potentially, I'm sure we have MARC records sitting out there where all the items on them have technically been discard weeded, but because they've not been deleted, that MARC record is still living in the catalog. And so that's a bigger deal when you start getting a lot of those. So anybody else want to talk about discard weed and what they're doing? I know it's hard for me to keep up with chat. That's usually Kate's job.
I a lot of times work with the pull list in addition to cataloging, and when that discard weed sits in there too long, and like Liz said, if it's a lot, a record where that's all that's on there, people are going to put holds on that and not know what they're doing. And we're going to end up with people not getting books. They're going to go to hopeless holds, or it'll get deleted and the person never knows why they didn't get the book. I try to go in and look and merge records on that pull list when that happens, but there's not always something to merge to make that hold fillable. So the longer those discard weed items stay there, the less patron satisfaction and putting books in patrons' hands we're going to have.
That's a great point. I didn't even think about that because I don't immediately think circulation. But yes, that's exactly what could be happening. People, if they're putting holds on that and there are no live copies, that's going to sit there and end up on your list. And then you will have to merge, or who knows, hopefully there's something else in the catalog that the patron can resend, but sometimes not. So it is like also a patron satisfaction thing, and like when it gets out of hand.
Liz, what
Can
we
I-
do with our discard weeds, when we mark it that way, we mark it as not holdable so that it would prevent somebody from pulling one of our discarded items.
That makes sense.
I didn't think you could put hold on a discard weed item.
Well, it's if they're putting a mark record level hold and all the things on there are discard weeded. Right?
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like a weird, not how the system is supposed to work, but could possibly snafu and work that way when we don't intend it to. Which, how many ways are there for that to happen? A million.
Liz, I was thinking the same way that Ron was thinking, circulation minded. And for those people that responded about how they need to keep them in the system so long for like their board reports or whatever, is there not a report that would record that? Because I'm pretty sure you can pull just about any data out of the system. And I wondered if maybe the people that do that did that before such a report or such a way to record those existed. And if we could maybe set a time for, hey, these can only be in the system so long, let's lead people towards this report. But that's just my own personal thought.
That's kind of where we're heading with this. We just didn't realize how people were weeding, or that, some people are doing delete versus discard weed. Because really the only reason somebody, a library would possibly want to put something in discard weed is when you want to count that specifically later for a report. I don't know another reason why you wouldn't just necessarily delete it. It's just you need to count it. It's a easy report to run. If stuff is marked discard weed, you can count them, give that to whoever needs to need it. But then you do have to remember to go back and delete those items. So if you are just, deleting your items when you are weeding, that's fine. Oh, Karen says, yeah, if you want to reinstate an item, if the time is, and you get rid of something and then decide, oh, we do want another copy of this, and you buy a new copy and it's the same copy, yes. So we're just trying to figure out where we should go about making this, maybe suggestions or best practice. We're not going to, come in here and tell you exactly how you should do it, but we're going to tell you what will be best for everyone and how to get those out of the catalog if they are discard weeded and it's been a long time.
The ease of checking something back in when it's been marked discard weed is sort of a double-edged sword. Like, that is convenient to get it back into the catalog if you need to do that. But if you do it accidentally and it doesn't give you, if someone doesn't notice the pop-up, then you're going to do double the work. So something has come out of discard weed and maybe the person who weeded it has not realized that, and now it's going back onto the shelf where it shouldn't. So that's one of the reasons I think we delete things pretty swiftly. So within a week. And
I mean, I'll admit it, who sees so many pop-ups that sometimes you just kind of ignore them because, right? I do as I say, not as I do. You should be reading your pop-ups and not just clicking okay. But we get so many that's how our system works that, sometimes you just, but that Heather's right. There's a thing. And then you end up with the book back on your shelf and maybe you reread it later, who knows? But it's there again. I'm gonna try to look here at the chat. Okay, and somebody's saying they do they delete, but they did not know how to run a report for the items that they deleted or whatever. Okay, so cataloging committee, we'll talk about this next week. So sorry guys, I'm spoiling the news for next week. This is what we're going to be talking about at our next meeting. And we'll be coming up with, a best practice for people, and then making sure there are specific reports that people can run and where they can find those reports. Because it's not good enough for us to say, there's a report, find it. We'll point out where it is, and we'll give you some breadcrumbs and make sure there are some directions on how to do this too, okay? Because it's just one more thing we've got to worry about. So any other questions, comments, concerns, anything, discard weed. I will say we can't tell you how much you should be weeding, but it should be kind of a continuous process. Please don't let it build up and then don't do it. Guys, I worked at SEMO Library and they hadn't weeded in like 50 years. I am not exaggerating. Sarah Llewellyn, wherever she is, she was there too. She can attest. Don't do it. Make sure you're weeding consistently. It helps your patrons find the good stuff that is in your catalog, okay? If they can't find the forest through the trees, it's a problem. All right. Okay. So any other questions regarding anything we've talked about? Weeding, K-Pack, our pin-worthy additions, cataloging committee, just whatever.
I just want to say, I'm from Debbie from Ross County. This was helpful. We were just afraid we were doing things wrong, and it's kind of nice to affirm that we've actually done something right this time. So, yay.
So good job. So always, guys, it is always okay to ask me. I am never going to be like, oh, bad. But if you want to email me ever, if you're like, are we doing this right? Please feel free to ask me, and we can feel it out with the other catalogers, because like, we've discovered here, there's more than one way to do something, and it's not necessarily always wrong. But I feel that where it's like, I'm going to do this. I think it's right, but I'm also not going to put myself out there in case I'm doing it wrong and someone yells at me. I don't like doing that. So, okay. This has been relatively short meeting. So we will meet back here September 8th at 11, unless anybody has any more questions. But for the last time, please remember to put your library and your name in the chat so that I can get attendance. Otherwise, I don't know who's been here. Okay, so please remember to do that. You know where to find me, cataloger at Missouri Evergreen, or ME Help, or wherever. Okay, so please feel free to reach out if you need something. Otherwise, you get a half hour back of your day, guys. Go get some coffee and have a great week. Okay, we'll see you next month.